My name is Héloïse. I come from Rainian Island. I've traveled quite a few times in different countries. So I've been to Canada, to the UK multiple times, France mainland, Germany, China, and South Africa. So I love traveling, and my cat comes with me usually. And I have a little boy who's 8 months old, and he will hopefully be speaking German, French, and English. And so I will be speaking about hopefully giving tips and tricks to raise a bilingual or multilingual child.
And you're doing your PhD on?
It's how the children, so bilingual children's development, language development, when they use mostly code switching and just the overall bilingual process.
So maybe I can just tell you what are some of the main concerns that people have when it comes to raising bilingual or even multilingual kids. And here we are in Germany, and it's even more common here as compared to, I'm not saying other countries, there are immigrants in all countries, there are expats everywhere, but here in Germany we have such a variety of people that come all over the world, and you have so many languages, as you said yourself. Is it bad? Is it a bad thing? Do they mix their languages as they go? What is your take on it?
All right, so what I hear the most usually when we say bilingual, multiple languages and so on, and code switching, people ask, oh, but don't they get like confused? And that's, I hear so often. And I have been told myself, and I'm sure so many people have as well, to wait to use one language, and then around 5-6 years old to introduce another language. But the important thing to know is a child, when he's or she is exposed to more than one language from early on, do not get confused. They are sponges. They just get it in and then they just give it back. An exposure to a language, it's never symmetrical. So it's normal that a child is going to use maybe one word of a language and then switch to another one, because they do know it and they do it on purpose to switch, or maybe in the situation they are just going to change the language and use the other word because it has more meaning for them. We also have this experience. Sometimes one language has more meaning, so sentimental or work, or it depends. And children are the same.
But you just used a very interesting word right now, symmetrical. How do you think the balancing goes? Do you think it comes from whichever language you use most at home is what they are stronger in?
Usually what we say is 25 to 30 hours a week of exposure to one language is good to get the language in. So when they go to daycare for 8 hours and then another 8 hours with another language, this is really good. They have 6 hours and then maybe 10 hours of the other, or with it can be different. It can still work. I think it can still work, especially.
And you think they will balance it out?
Yes, they will balance it, but it's really good to have 25 to 30 hours of exposure a week for each language.
And when do you think is the right time? Let me just take my example again here. We speak mostly French at home, because my husband and I, we speak French, and that is what our son is mostly exposed to. Of course, I also speak English. My husband does not, but I would like him to be able to speak English. So what is your suggestion on that? When is a good time to introduce that second language?
Best.
Okay.
So from even before birth, because they still get the sounds and the musicality of the languages in the womb. But really up to 3 years old, I would say it's great. And then 5 years old is good. And then it gets a bit tricky, but it's possible. For your husband, for example, it would be nice to have a really specific time of the day. For example, going to the park or reading a book or something really active for the child, where this one language is always used.
Okay.
And I think the important thing is, so if there is one word to remember here, is consistency.
So you have to be consistent with
Yeah,
it.
consistent, because the child, I mean, we learn as we go that children like routine. It's good to go to bed with a routine and everything. And for language learning, it's the same.
Okay. And sometimes we have this situation, for example, and I think it's very common. They are speaking a certain language.
Yeah.
One of the words in the sentence turns out to be from another language. How do you deal with that situation?
So I would advise for the parents, so there is a method that's called one parent, one language. This is usually what parents do to raise a kid bilingual. I would advise to stick to that one parent, one language, because I give an example. You go to the park and the child says, Mommy, look at the balançoire, for example. I want to go on the balançoire. And the mom, for example, can say, oh yes, let's go on the swing then. That's a great idea.
Yes.
So this is helpful for both reasons, that the child has the input of the other word. Oh, this is the swing, balançoire. Okay, translation, I have it. And it's good for the parent because it keeps the parents stuck into the one parent, one language. So there's no switching, because then it can get a bit tricky to get back into this routine of one language.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and another very common concern that we have as parents raising multilingual kids, our kids, are they going to speak late? I know it worries every parent, I think.
It can happen. It's usually, so I'm really advising, if you have concerns that your child is not understanding or might be confused or these things, to seek medical help, because I am not a medical doctor and I'm not even a doctor yet, but it will come. But usually bilingual children are a little bit later to speak, but they should be communicating with you, whether it's by pointing or replying in a certain way, so they're acting when you say something. But speaking words, it can come later, but it should have been balanced with monolinguals, usually by school age. So when they get to school, they should have the level balanced with monolinguals.
Okay, just a quick remark here. We have question, I would say a remark in chat box right now, but we will get to that in just a few minutes, maybe in like 5 more minutes. We will get to the Q&A session, and then you can unmute yourself and even turn on your video if you like, and you can ask Héloïse your questions then. Yeah. So from my part, so to end this conversation right now between us, before we jump to the Q&A, I would like to ask you, what about more than 2 languages? How do you deal with it? Like you said, one parent, one language, right? So how do you balance out if there are more than 2 languages?
What would be the best? So I am navigating this right now as well with my son, and what would be the best is the parent who's the main parent. Usually, for example, me, my partner, my husband, he's going to work and I spend most of the time with my kids. I am the one who's speaking both languages, English and French, with him. Usually it's good when the main parent has the 2 languages. It's the same, 25 to 30 hours a week of exposure. I speak French with my son when we are alone. I speak English with him when we are the 3 of us together, because my husband doesn't speak French. And I read to him in English. What I can advise parents with a 3rd language is to dedicate one time period of the day to the 3rd language. I'm going to give some examples. So there is reading or tele-watching and discussing. It's important because television is really passive. So it's good to talk with the child, or did you see what he said? Or look, there's a cat in the TV, or whatever. So setting the language for a certain time of the day, for example, a meal or homework, music, going to the park, Skyping with the family that maybe speaks the third language, or board games playing, all these things. Another possibility is to introduce a third person, that is an au pair or a nanny or another family member that will spend this 25, 30 hours a week with the child.
Yeah. And talking about that, about activities that you can do to get the child engaged in other languages, I just want to mention that we have Brigitte here. She runs the We Learn German company, and she has these very fun online activities that she does for families with kids, little kids, 1 to 6 years old, who want to learn German through singing, for example, through conversations, for fun activities. And I think that's a very good way that's a very good way to expose them to the German language, since we are in Germany. So right now, I think it's better we just jump to the Q&A. I'm sure all of you here attending. So we have quite a few people who have jumped in now, like I was saying. So we will just give them the chance now to start with the Q&A. I see one from the chat box. So we have a message here from Blessing. His child is 1.7 years old, so less than 2, and they're teaching him 2 languages, their native language and English. And how can they effectively teach him both languages?
So the native language is not the language of the country, right?
Their language.
Okay, so what could be nice is use that language to dedicate one time of the day with that language. Like I was saying, meals are really nice because it takes time, it's long, it's pleasing and everything. It needs to have a good connection. The language needs to have a good connection with a good time of the day. Then what's good as well is to meet with people. For example, me, for German, because my son has the less exposure to German here, I have 2 girlfriends that I meet with and I speak German with them, and their kids also, they will be speaking German. So it's good to meet with people. Maybe there are parent groups where you live or things like this. This is really great.
Hi, how about if the 2 parents speak the same language but different dialects? Like completely different. Does the same rule apply for different languages to different dialects, or?
What do you mean?
So I speak Arabic and my husband speaks a totally different dialect of Arabic.
So, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, this works, of course. For example, I speak French and my family speaks Creole.
Okay.
Which is derived from French in Réunion Island. Yeah. And I think it works perfectly the same. It's dialect, it will work the same way in the child's mind.
Mm-hmm. So if I'm going to teach him 3 languages, like Arabic, English, and German, for example, and the Arabic is 2 Arabics, so that's 4 languages.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, as long as you have the good exposure, so these 25, 30 hours a week, as long as you have this, it should be working, yes.
Yeah, his dad and his dad's family, of course, they all speak Egyptian Arabic, and I speak Jordanian Arabic.
Okay.
They are actually completely different, so yeah. To him, maybe that's 2 languages to the baby.
Yeah,
he just agreed. Okay, so we have Beiran. So she's saying that her youngest son, who is now 8 years old, so they have been in Netherlands for 3 years, and the son is now speaking Dutch perfectly, but she is not. She's learning because at home they speak Turkish and English, and so I think that's very common, right? So what would you say, Héloïse? Do the children learn faster than us?
I see. When I speak Dutch with him, he despises my Dutch. Yeah, this is. I've seen many times kids saying, "Oh, why do you speak that language?" No, that doesn't suit you. Actually, don't do that, because they don't have this connection. So maybe he's used to you speaking a certain language, and he's not gonna like the other language. But that doesn't have to do specifically with the fact that you don't speak Dutch properly. I think even if I speak good English and then French and just used to speaking French with my son, if I speak English, he's going to be like, oh, why are you speaking that language to me? That's not right. Because there is this habit of one language, usually. Yeah, I would say keep going. They will get used to it.
So you would say that the kids tend to associate one
Yes.
parent with one language.
Oh.
Saying that he feels uncomfortable when she tries to speak Dutch with him outside. What would you advise?
I would advise to really speak to him. Speaking and explaining to him that you are learning, and sometimes it's important that you speak Dutch because other people need to understand what you're saying to him. I think 8 years old, he's big enough to understand that sometimes, even if he doesn't like it, the language has to be used. And
maybe I'm just thinking on top of my mind, maybe you can tell us, Héloïse, if that works, if she maybe tries it in a form of game with the child and saying that, look, now you're my teacher.
Yeah.
That could work, right?
I was going to say maybe to ask him to teach you words or sayings or things like this. So he becomes the teacher, and then it's just great. It's a game, yeah.
Okay, so let's take other questions. If anyone has one, I will ask Héloïse a question myself. So when they are learning multiple languages, we are also worried as a parent about their writing, for example. So what happens when he will end up speaking a language that he's not actually able to write?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you feel about that?
Reading. I think.
So you think that will help with the vocabulary, the grammar?
Because even with monolinguals, it helps to catch the grammar and the expressions and things, how they are written. And yes, reading a lot. I would say some techniques I could give is to have a daily or weekly diary. Maybe even with smaller children who don't write yet or read yet, so they can see how the words are formed and things like this. You can sit them on the lap and say, oh, today we went to the shop, and so they can see the words being written. And then when they get bigger, they can write it themselves. Then having a pen pal, that could help a lot. This has helped me when I was learning Chinese. I had a pen pal and I learned a lot of words with her. Then playing board games like Scrabbles, for example. So they have to learn good words, yeah. Or what's the word? Trivial Pursuit, yeah. These ones are good to read the cards. And then there is also for little ones maybe dictating the shopping list. So especially if you're a big family and there's a lot to buy.
Okay, and do you think that reading goes the same way as speaking the language, as in one parent, one language? So if you're reading, do you think you will master the reading skills and the writing skills for both languages if they are reading and writing in two different languages at the same time?
You know, that's a really interesting question. And I would assume yes, as long as it's consistent. But writing and reading, it's not the same as speaking. Speaking, it's all the time.
Of course.
I would say yes, but would need longer. A child who needs to speak, if you immerse him in a language, in 2 months or 3 months, they can have it. When a child is learning how to read and write, it takes a little bit longer. So the first year at school, they spend the whole time learning, and then it takes practice and practice and practice over 2, 3, 4 years to really master it. So I would say it would be the same.
Okay. And in the early stages, for example, before a year old, let's say, you would advise reading, for example, storybooks, and that would help their reading and writing to get going.
Yes, good storybooks with hand plays, or for example, I have this book that my best friend gave me when I was when I gave birth to my son, and it says, I love you big like this, or high like this, or up to my toes, and I take his toes and his feet, and so playing with the body and while speaking at the same time, so the child is involved in it's not just reading, he's involved with his body and with his mind, and he's looking at me, what are you doing, you know. Books with hard covers for now when they are little, and lots of body plays and things like this.
So another thing that comes to my mind, what do you think is a good age again to start those language classes? Because it's not the same as a parent teaching them, right? It's not the same as home reading storybooks, a more formal setting. What age do you think is good to enroll a child in a language class?
I would say if it's with singing and things like this, and it's not too long, if it's half an hour or something like this, even little, 6 months, 8 months old, I think it could work. I think it could be interesting, yes.
It could be interesting.
Because these kids, they want to do so many things, right? And if it's a singing session and they see many people and things like this, and it's not long, because they can't focus for too long, I think it can work for 6, 8 months old.
Another thing that I can think about, how do we help, and I think it's in line with what Biran asked as well, how do we help our children learn another language? For example, here in Germany, they have to be able to speak German. But if we have no clue about the language, we don't speak it at home, we can barely read it. How would you advise to help them with that?
Meeting with people. So this is what I'm doing, because as I was saying, my husband works, and German is the least language that he gets. And I meet with my girlfriends, and I go to the swimming pool, and I really try to do activities, or Eltern Cafe, I go to do activities where German has to be used. And then hopefully he makes friends with kids who will be speaking German with him later on.
Okay, but then you don't really get to help him with homework. Sometimes we're afraid that our kids will lag behind in class, in academics. What do you think about that?
I think it's interesting it would be interesting to see if the child, you can ask him, so what does it say here? And then you can explain in your own language, and then they can get it in the other language. It should work. It's a little bit longer for the homework because there is the explanation part. Yes. But I think it should work this way.
Biran is saying this is the reason she pushes off a lot to learn Dutch. Yes, we understand. Happy now I can read and help him now. Yeah, she's saying that also language is a part of culture. I wanted to say that as well. Language is a part of culture. Wherever we live in the world, we have to learn the language. So our kids have to learn the language as well. So yeah, it's very good what Biran is saying right now. This is all the reason we need to push ourselves to learn the language as well. And still on the same topic, but a little more relevant to parents maybe. So yes, we are raising multilingual kids, and we have discussed a lot about what we can do to help them. What do you think we can do to help ourselves so we can help them?
Again, to go out and meet people. Yeah, I think meeting with people and going out, going to parent cafes or meetings, going to the park with people. And
now we're all living the corona pandemic.
Yeah.
How do you think that is affecting the kids in terms of languages? Because like you mentioned, there's a lot we can do, or I should say a lot we could have done in the past. Now we have to adapt to the new ways. How do you think that is affecting how they're learning languages? Do you think it's changing?
Yes, I think, well, only the future will tell, but I had seen this study once that it was two groups of babies. They were in language, so age, yeah? And one teacher was teaching them a few words, just in physical like this. And they were catching it. It was Chinese words. They were catching it and saying it back and things like this. Then the same teacher with another group of kids was being recorded and did it on the TV, the same lesson, and they didn't catch any words. So this really shows that the passive of the screen, it's something else for kids to learn.
They need more interaction.
Yeah, they need interaction, they need the 3D. And you know, the full body language, you don't like the even if it's on the screen, it's smaller, like there isn't this real size, and the body language and the face. I think it's I saw an expression, it's disembodied voice. That's it, you know, it's not a real voice coming out of a real person.
Yes. And do you think that is it a good thing to homeschool then?
I think the interaction is important for learning languages, you know.
Okay. Yeah, so it might not be the wisest choice to.
Yeah, I would say meet people. Screen is good, you know, but sometimes. I mean, right now we see with the situation that it's really helpful and we are able to do so many things, but I think we will see in the future, but I think so many parents, they think that, okay, the kid is going on the internet and learning, and it's a little bit too loose.
I can just give, just let Brigitte tell us how she helps families learn German here. And then Héloïse, you can tell us what is your advice on that and how you feel about that. Hi.
Hi.
Hey, hi.
Hi. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. It was nice listening to you all. Yeah, my name is Brigitte, supporting families all over the world who want to speak German in their family, even though it is not one of their family languages, inborn family languages. So people who they come or they do that for different reasons. So maybe let's say these are people who may have lived in Germany with or without their kids, but now live in another place. Or so maybe like one of you might move at some time in your life, and you have a child that is has grown up in Germany, or you yourself, you spent some time in Germany, but you're not there anymore, and your child, but it's not your native language, but it's still part of your family's history. Or maybe your grandmother spoke German and in your family there's no connection to it anymore because you've lost it over the generations. Or there are also people who just want to add another language into their family without having appointments or having a school-like instruction. So language instruction like we know it from school. And what I do is I work online with them, and I have I instruct people to bring German in their life through interaction. So what happens is I show the parents and the kids how to play a game in German.
Is that what you do in the online activity days?
I just show my 5 favorite activities for the young children. So from 1 to 6, there will be some stuff for all of them. And I want to show people how to easily integrate a bit of German every day, so that you can work with rituals and work with small everyday pieces. And then this is the door opener for more German in your life, if you want so. Parents and children can interact with me as well. So it's a combination of this parent and kid interaction, but also interaction with me and all the other people. So imagine there's a family in the middle of the US who doesn't have the possibility to be in contact with other German-speaking families. So, and what Héloïse was talking about, so this child-on-child interaction is not as possible. So online meetings are a very good thing. So we sing, we dance together, we show objects, you know, children can show their favorite toys and then talk to each other about it and search for the next robot, and then, you know, explain what they are experiencing to people who actually understand them in the language they learned. People do not necessarily speak German when they start out.
So Héloïse, what do you think about that method of learning for the whole family? It's not just kids.
I think it's great. I really think it's great because involving the whole family, it will help the child to learn, and of course the parents, because they will catch it. But I think it's good because I think the child, they learn by mimicking, you know, and they will see, so my parents are learning this, you know, I'm going to do the same, and it's motivating. I think it's really, really interesting. I wanted to just add something that I found. It's like 10 rules to raise a bilingual child that I found on the Bilingual Kids spot. So rule number 1, having a plan. So one parent, one language, or minority language at home, or there are very different ones. 2, time. So these 25, 30 hours a week. 3, books. So reading, like I was saying. 4, music. Even us, we sing languages, songs of languages we don't even speak, right? 5, enthusiasm. This is so important for everything. If the child gets bored, it's not going to work. 6, consistency. 7, patience. It takes time, like us, when we learn languages. 8, perseverance, if I'm pronouncing this properly.
Perseverance, yes.
Yeah, so not losing, so getting angry maybe because the child is not getting something. Perseverance. 9, support, whether it's the parents' support or outside support. It's really nice to have this whole system. And 10, fun. Meal times is great because, you know, like we like to eat and kids like to eat, and yeah, it's fun.
So thank you very much, Héloïse. It was really nice to have you. And I will just take a minute to tell more about the show. So the Mom Vibe with Rawiyah, and of course I'm Rawiyah, we discuss all topics about raising children. It's not just about the kids, it's also about the moms a lot. The last session was on stay-at-home moms who wants to transition into entrepreneurs. So that was very interesting as well. So whenever you have a suggestion for a topic, you can leave it on our Facebook page. You can even message me directly, or you can just comment it on our Instagram as well. I read all the comments, and we will take that into account for our next sessions, whatever will benefit you most. Okay, so we will close the conversation here now. Like I said, more questions on our YouTube channel, Instagram, or Facebook.